Excellent. Well, let's begin. Welcome, everyone, and we appreciate everyone getting on today. We've got folks from around the country, and we've got some of our existing clients and channel partners, and we appreciate you folks being on. And we've got some folks that we've just started to recently work with, and we, of course, appreciate you being on. Calling in here from actually a nice day, believe it or not, in January from Chicago, Illinois. And so let's get started. We've got a lot to cover today. As you can see from our screen here, we're going to be covering our product, which I know a number of you have been working with us on. And today we're actually going to focus on a niche that we have really started to get traction on, and channel partners and clients advisors alike have found to be very beneficial, and that's some deferral strategies here for C corporations. Now this niche was actually brought to us by our hosting partner, First American Exchange, and we have appreciated the relationship with them on many fronts. But with that said, we've got a number of those folks on the phone here with us, and I'm going to introduce Gabrielle Glass, who is my colleague here for exchanges in Chicago. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Gabrielle to give a quick hello and intro to First American Exchange. And again, we thank you for your sponsorship today.
Thank you, Chris. I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar on behalf of First American Exchange. We have a national footprint, and we work with Brook Hollow Financial, who's an insurance broker, specializing in structured sales and structured settlements so that we can layer, in many cases, our exchange products with their insurance products, so we can really fuse the two types of products together with a 1031 exchange and a structured sale, and situations we've talked about in prior webinars where a client can't complete an exchange, doesn't want the burden. The client doesn't want to trade into replacement for 1031 exchange with First American, or if they want to partially reinvest and there's a scrap left over or residual cash, and they don't want boots because they don't want to reinvest into like-kind property, we can spring them into a structured sale. So we often think about the structured sale product for clients who have dispositions of real estate, some personal property assets, but there are also situations where we've got advisors with clients like C corporations, and they have ineligible assets, so we can't start them out in a 1031 exchange because they may have assets like goodwill and inventory, cash accounts. So we work with Brook Hollow so that the client doesn't have to have tax triggering events at the point of resale. So Brook Hollow will actually run illustrations for the advisors and the clients so that they can select a program to spread their tax liability. And of course the product requires careful analysis because this product doesn't work in all situations. So you know, if one of these situations is spotted where a client has an opportunity for a 1031 exchange, obviously, or for a structured sale program, you should contact your First American Exchange, your local office, talk to the rep and discuss it on a preliminary basis to see what we can do to help cushion the tax bite for the client. So at this point, I just want to say how important these programs are that we deliver at First American, because as your practice is evolving, it's important to be aware of products that we have to offer and different applications. So now I'm going to turn it back over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabrielle. And as you folks can see here, I've got the First American Exchange, their website here. And as Gabrielle had mentioned, they have a footprint across the country, and if you're looking for your local resource, this is the best place to find that. So with that said, a few housekeeping rules. Except for the panelists, everyone will be muted because of the number of folks we do have on the phone today. However, if there are questions, please use your control panel there to send over a question, and we'll try to get that answered as quickly as possible. And today's program is eligible for 1 hour of CPE. So I will be sending out a follow-up email within 24 hours of the presentation. And then for the tax advisor folks on the phone, if they could return that, we'll make sure you get your CPE completion certificate. So with that said, let's jump right into this. Just a little background on us. We are not a legal firm or a tax firm. However, we are CPAs and attorneys and deferral and exchange specialists. And here's my main colleagues and our principals here. And two of these folks you'll be hearing from today, Brian Michaels, who is our general counsel and a number of years on the real estate tax and law side. Same goes with Joe Papel, who's our CFO and CPA, and he's going to be going through a very impressive spreadsheet that, as Gabrielle had mentioned, shows to the penny what our program can help, or where it can help the client. So with that said, we do have, and this entire staff is available to you as the advisors, and then of course to the clients as well. So today's agenda, let's go through this. We'll go through a quick structured sale preview. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Brian Michaels, to talk about the tax consequences on the C Corp situation. And then a number of you have already seen this, but to make sure we're all on the same page, I'm going to go through a very brief summary of the tax code that allows for this product. And then the detail on the structured sale, the actual product and what that looks like. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Papel, our CFO, to go through the spreadsheet, which is actually the client deliverable, breaks everything down in black and white to the actual number and percentage of help that we can offer the client, and then a couple of other a summary of strategies where the structured sale can come into play. And as mentioned, the question and answer. Please, at any time there's any questions, feel free to type that in, and we'll get that answered as quickly as possible. Okay, so obviously, let's walk here before we run. What's wrong with receiving a large lump sum of cash? Well, in my book, not a lot, except this person cometh and taketh away. And this is where it gets interesting. For C Corps, he or she cometh and a lot of times taketh again, and that's where we come into play. So where's the opportunity? Actually, obviously, the taxpayer or payers or entity is selling the corporation for taxable gain. God love them. And what are the options for that taxpayer? Well, they can obviously take the money, and then as we're talking today, to try to avoid taking that money and having to pay all those taxes. And then, as Gabrielle mentioned, there's the exchange side, but that is only going to work on the real estate portion. Goodwill proceeds are not an exchangeable asset. So there's some work if some of that sale involves real estate. But other than that, that C Corp goodwill is going to get that tax bite. So again, just setting this up, some of the benefits of offering the structured sales, the product we're talking about today, to your clients. A deferral strategy, obviously, where maybe you or the client wasn't aware that this could be done, or they maybe thought they were eligible for an exchange, and obviously these proceeds are not exchange eligible. And for you as the advisors, helping the client and helping get the deal closed. Our product comes into play a lot as an exit strategy in helping all sides come to a happy conclusion for the transaction. And again, for the advisor, bringing another tool to the table is always good for building your side of the business. And then, without saying, of course, the additional consulting work that would come with offering this product and walking your client through it. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Brian Michaels, to talk about the tax side. So with that said, Brian, take it away.
Morning, Chris. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Brian.
And Chris just said this is what I'm going to cover, so we can go on to the next slide.
Sure.
But yeah, what I'm going to talk about basically here is the tax consequence. Often when we're talking about selling assets, capital gains assets, it's an individual, some sort of entity that is able to take advantage of the capital gains rates. And what we hear a lot is that and you do too, is that, well, you know what, the capital gains rate's only 15%, and as we've been hearing, it's kind of a low rate, and why don't I just pay the tax? The rate's going to go up, and as a matter of fact, I just heard a little bit about that on the radio this morning too. But like it says on there, not so fast. And as Chris was saying earlier, this presentation today is focused on a very fine niche, and that's C corps and the sale of assets in a C corp. And it really is a problem and presents an opportunity for all of us. And that problem is that C corps don't get the advantage of the capital gains rate. So when a C corp sells, when the C corp actually is the seller, the owner, and the seller of the property, they pay tax on whatever their marginal rate is. And we have the schedule there, so you can see it is 15% at the first $50,000 of income. Jumps up at $50,001 to 25, quickly goes up into the 30s. And so you can see that when we're talking about a C corp and the C corp selling those assets, it's really not 15%. Let's go to the next slide.
Sure.
Oh, well, there.
Sorry about that, Brian. Let me just make sure everyone can take that in for a second. I'm sorry.
No problem.
We're tax deferral folks. We're not technology folks.
Right. So hopefully we got all that. But the point is, you're really talking about, unless it's a sale of under 100,000 or under 75,000, you're talking in the 30 to 35% range, just at the C corp level. So let's go on to the next slide.
Sure.
That doesn't really solve the problem. I mean, that's problem enough when somebody just throws out, hey, it's only 15%, because with the C corp, you just saw it's not. With the C corp, you actually have double taxation, because the C corp, and let me distinguish, and I know we probably all know the difference, but with corporations, basically you have a C corp, which is a regular corporation, then you have S corp, which has made an S election, or subchapter S election, which means that basically the corporation's taxed at an individual's level. Now here we're talking about C corps, those corporations that were set up as corporations, have always operated as a regular tax corporation, and the C corp is a separate legal entity, taxed as that entity with their own taxation rules. So what happens is, and a lot of you, I'm sure, own stock in, say, IBM or G, whatever, you pay, if you're an owner, you pay tax on the dividends, and that's the problem, is that first the corporation pays tax not at the capital gains rate, but at the ordinary income rates for the corporation, and then when the proceeds are distributed out of the corporation, they're taxed as dividends. You can push it again there, Chris.
Sure.
On here. And one more. So there you go. So what you have, and what I'm kind of probably beaten to death here, is that you have two layers of taxation. You have the corporation, let's say, owns a piece of property. The corporation sells it. That gain, or let's say it's even goodwill, whatever it is, that gain is taxed at the corporate rate. Let's say that's around 35%. Then the client wants to take that money out and then distribute it. It's taxed again. And typically the distributions from a C corp are taxed they're taxed as dividends, and usually at the capital gains rate of the individual, which, so if it's a qualified dividend, and typically they are, which would be another 15%. So we can go on to the next slide. So the real rate, I mean, here we have, could be upwards of 60%, and it easily could, because, keep going, Chris, a couple.
Sure.
this the reason it could be that is because just off the top, you have the C corp rate, right? So if you have a C corp that's owned by 1 or 2 people, so then it's taxed at 34 to 39%. Another 15% when the distribution is taken out. So that's 35, 45, 50. You have state tax on top of that. Could easily be, in the 5 to 10% range. And then at the individual level, you could have, different phase-outs, alternative minimum tax, all that sort of stuff. So when a client says, especially with the C corp, which is the niche we're talking about today, I'm not concerned about it because it's only 15%. It's really important to take a pause, take a step back, and say, it's a C corporate. Let's really take a look at this. And that's what we do with our partners, is work through the transactions with them and their clients, and say, does deferral make sense? Let's go to the next slide, which I think is where you take over, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. A nice summary there, and I think Brian hits it on the head on that last point, where our job is to work with you and the client to find out if this, first of all, if it does make sense wherever the taxpayer's situation stands. That's where we get involved to help run through the numbers, help with the interview of the client, and again, just to see if and where we can help. So with that said, we're going to take a step back, talk a little bit about the product, and this product starts with the tax code that it bumps up against, which is installment sale, which is Internal Revenue Code 453, which if I'm sure a number of you have already worked with this, but it's been around since the mid-30s. It's a very meat and potatoes tax code that folks have been taking advantage of for quite a while. And what is it? It's disposition of an asset, where at least one payment is taken from the buyer in a year after sale. It doesn't have to be the immediate year after. It can be any time in the future, as long as one note payment is received. There's constructive receipt in the year after the sale. And this is where it gets fun. That income is taxed under 453 installment sale treatment, which is exactly these 2 points, and especially this last one, where only the gain from the amount that's taken receipt of for that year is taxed. So in essence, you're spreading the pain out over time, and reflecting that gain for the taxpayer for that given year. And we'll get into some of the other benefits in a second on that. So let's look at a very very basic example here, just so we're following along on what this looks like visually. So let's say we've got a sales price here of $4 million. And in the first example, it's a cash sale for the C corporation. So the buyer brings to the table the cash, and the seller takes receipt of the money. And then the second scenario, we'll look at what it looks like in an installment sale treatment. So you can see here pretty much the profits of a sale here at $1 million. And we're assuming a base here. But and this is, as Brian had mentioned, this is probably a low estimate, but for a C corporation, tax rate of 40%, and again, as we mentioned, it can be north of 60. That tax is going to be $400,000. So this client's going to net $600,000 and reflect that amount for that given tax year, which again could have a number of other tax triggers involved, which we'll get to in a second. And here's what it looks like for installment sale treatment. Let's assume the seller says, I want to get into an installment sale situation with you, Mr. or Ms. Buyer, and I want, instead of all of it up front, and again, this example is just showing the profits, I want you to give it to me over the next 5 years. So this person now is taking $200,000 from the note and only paying the appropriate amount for that amount of money. So they're in essence only reflecting a $200,000 hit for that given tax year. On top of that, with note situations, with installment note situations, typically there's an interest payment associated from the seller to the buyer, and I'm sorry, from the buyer to the seller, and that's usually, and we've seen everything from 3 to 5%. So on top of getting the deferral benefit, and this can be designed however the taxpayer wants to see it. They're also going to be earning, let's just use 5%, 5% interest on the pre-tax amounts. So along with the $200,000, this client's going to be getting $10,000 in interest, and they'll pay ordinary income on that amount. So on and so forth. So it's I'm sorry, actually they'd be getting, let me step back on that, they'd be getting 5% on the $1 million in that first year. And then they'd be getting 5% on $800,000 in the next year. And so on and so forth. So it's not only a deferral strategy, it's also growth on the pre-tax amounts of this money. And we'll just quickly go through these. So obviously some of the installment sale benefits, as we talked about, deferring the payment of those gains. If applicable, deferring the recapture of the depreciation, and that's more on the real estate side, and creating a stream of income. So obviously you can see in the number of folks we have talked to, it's a situation where they're possibly nearing retirement, and they're looking for an exit strategy. They don't want to, they want to get out of the business and really create a stream of income to take care of themselves and their family and whoever they are looking to take care of, dependent on them. A nice situation here for a stream of income that is tax deferred. And again, in summarizing, just converting an asset that is not possibly productive for them anymore into a deferred cash stream. Okay, so what's the flip side to this point? What has been the flip side of 453 of installment sale treatment? Well, obviously, what if the note payer goes bankrupt? And we have seen a lot of this. That is a legal and a financial mess for everyone involved. What about an early payoff? Well, the seller is obviously going to get their money, but it's all going to become constructive receipt. Obviously, they're going to have that tax consequence to pay, and they may this could put them into a sticky situation. Obviously, this is more on the real estate side if that's involved, but a structured sale can eliminate all of these things, and that's pretty much my softball pitch here to the product we're talking about today, which is the structured sale. And it allows a lot of the things we've just talked about with installment sale treatment of fixed income, deferring gains. However, now instead of the seller relying on a buyer's financial wherewithal, now those funds are going to be backed and guaranteed by some sort of product that's going to be a mix of a treasury, a bond situation, or an annuitized product, which has been our most popular product to date. So what are the benefits? And then we'll look at what this looks like visually. Gains are taxed only as they're received. Again, installment sale treatment. However, there's no ongoing relationship between the buyer and the seller, as in a traditional installment sale. And when that note is backed by a mix of U.S. Treasuries and bonds, arguably that's going to be one of the most secure vehicles in the market today. So what does this look like? And we'll crawl, walk, and then we'll run into this. So a cash sale, what does it look like? Well, buyer gives the seller cash, seller gives the buyer the asset. Fair enough. Installment sale, we just talked about this. Buyer gives the seller possibly some sort of upfront money, and then a note situation, but the seller still gives the buyer the C corp, the asset. Now, what does a structured sale look like? And we'll piecemeal this. This is a lot easier than it looks, so we'll go through this very slow. So we've got the buyer and the seller, and I'm going to use Brian, my colleague, as an example here to talk this through it. So I go to Brian. I'm like, Brian, I want to buy your C corporation, and I have an amount of cash here. And Brian says, great, Chris, let's do this. I want to do this. However, I don't want to take receipt of those funds. I am actually going to give authority for you, Chris, as the buyer, to transfer those proceeds to what's legally called the substitute obligor, which is the treasury and bond mixed product. So now I will come to that closing with my money as the buyer, but Brian has given me authority to transfer those proceeds to the substitute obligor. And for that, Brian then is going to transfer me the C Corporation, the asset. Now, Brian will have already worked with Brooke Hollow and the folks on the phone here, their advisors, to design how that cash flow is going to come out and be paid to Brian. Now, as he takes receipt of those payments are eligible for installment sale treatment. So he's only going to be paying the appropriate taxes on the amount that he takes for that given year. On top of that, there's also the interest component. So he's going to be taking those interest payments based, and this is very important, and we'll see here how it really, the significance of it in a second here on the spreadsheet from Joe, but he's getting an interest component on those pre-tax amounts every year. So that is very significant on the growth portion of this product. So that's really the structured sale in a nutshell. It's a fairly simple product, and we work with the client really from the beginning all the way through the closure. Now, obviously, this is a situation where we need to be involved before the closing because the client cannot take receipt of those funds. So it's very important that we get involved, and we always say that the sooner the better. In the summary here on the benefits that we've already touched on, the payments can be made however the taxpayer wants to see them, monthly, annually, periodic lump sums. We work with a lot of clients so that these payments are bumped. If it's a corporation, then maybe these payments can be matched to some of their other expenses. They can be matched to possibly a mortgage of a client that has some other real estate holdings, or it can just be matched to their lifestyle, whatever they want and need to see. The payments can be received for life or a period certain amount of time. Obviously, with life, and that's more on the annuitized product, that's exactly what it is. The client will be getting payments for the rest of their life. If that inevitable bus of life comes and takes them out the day after they structure it, obviously the insurance company wins. If they live to be 180, God forbid, then obviously they win. We've had a few clients do that. The majority of our clients do the period certain because of the estate planning tool, and this is especially true for individuals where they have heirs or a family that they would want to leave these funds behind to. That if something should happen before all payments are made, the remaining payments would flow into the client's estate, and then however they've directed the estate to pay out their heirs is exactly how those heirs would receive the remaining payments. And as mentioned, and this is really the interesting part of this, there is no limitation on how the cash flow is designed. So we can work with you and the client to design these payments to match whatever they need, whether it's a lifestyle, whether it's a tax situation, whatever they need to see. And that's exactly this point here. And we've helped a lot of clients stay out of some of these higher tax brackets, for individuals staying out of an AMT situation. So it's a great tax planning tool. And this last point, pretty much investing 101, money that's earning interest for you instead of going to the government obviously is a good situation. And here's just a few points for the attorneys on the line here, or really anybody interested. This is just the snapshot of the legal justification for the structured sale. And when and if this comes into play, we of course can send you more information on that. All right, moving right along. I am going to turn this over to Joe Papella, our CFO, and our CPA. And Joe, let me pull up the spreadsheet, and feel free to take it away. There we go.
Fantastic. Hey, can you, this is fine. Good morning, everyone.
Do you need me to blow it up a little bit here, Joe?
No, this is fine. This is fine. Obviously, there's a lot of small print and a lot of different numbers, and don't worry, we'll guide you through it. When we take a look at is that we all we all understand that installment sale treatment is generally better than cash sale treatment. Obviously, we live in an environment where increasing taxes are looming. They haven't happened yet, but in general, installment sale treatment is better than cash sale treatment for tax purposes. And what we're talking about today, and obviously in the case of the sale of a C Corp to the C Corp shareholder, installment sale treatment is beneficial, and we can talk about why it's more beneficial. But what we're talking about is an installment sale that is where the cash is secure, you're not dependent upon the buyer, and it's at the option of the seller. The seller can decide what he wants to do with the money and how he wants to handle it. So when we take a look at it and analyze this, Chris, can you actually, there's a vertical split there. Can you grab that and move it to the right a little bit? That split right there. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, Joe, is this what you're looking for? Okay.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so what we do when we take a look and analyze this is we will take a look at what it looks like in a taxable situation, and then take a look at what the transaction can look like in a structured situation, and then compare the two. So as an example, here we have a taxable sale, and I'll just give you the assumptions. We have a company, a C corporation, that is going to be purchased for $1 million, and there is no basis of the assets inside the company, and the shareholders' basis is zero. Obviously, those are some unusual circumstances, but just for ease of the example here. So in a taxable situation, the corporate capital gain is $1 million, and of course that's subject to regular tax rates, and in this case we've used 6% for the state and 34% for the federal, and we come up with $60,000 and $340,000 of taxes. And then we have what's left, the $600,000 is presumably distributed to the taxpayer, the shareholder, excuse me, and that is subject to capital gains rates. The state 6%, federal 15%, so taxes come out again. And at the end of the day, on $1 million sale, the total tax is $474,000. Or excuse me, the cash left is $474,000. I'm not sure why the tax $466,000 should be a little higher than that. But if we go down now to the structured sale at closing, there's $1 million and no tax. The tax savings is $466,000, and as a percentage of the proceeds, which is a number that we calculate, that's obviously a very big number. It's almost like having twice as much to invest. So we will now, if you go up just a little bit, Chris, and then right there, that's good. And then go over to the right on the other side of the split there. So what's happening is we now have all these. That's good right there. It's a little bit difficult to see.
Sorry, let me.
That's fine. That's perfect. All right. So we have this. Basically, the shareholder has an additional $466,000 that is inside of the structure. And when we talk about inside the structure, the product or the financial instrument that's being used now is an annuity, and that annuity in our example is returning 5.47%. We are getting $8,333 a month starting in month 13, and that actually runs out for 188 months, so almost 16 years. So you can see that in the monthly receipt, it's $8,333. And the reason I chose $8,333 is that will equate to $100,000 over the course of a year. And we'll get into the meaning of that in a second, but I just wanted to mention the taxpayer, the shareholder can say, look, here's what I want. I'm putting $1 million into this annuity, and I want $8,333 a month beginning in month 13 for as long as it'll go. That's calculated to be 188 months. So if we, let's go up just a little bit. All right. Well, actually, this is good here. I think we can. Well, I guess we can't. Well, let's go up a little bit. Obviously, the federal corporate tax rate is 34% in a cash sale. If we go down in a structured sale, and the C corp is receiving $100,000 a year, we come up with a tax rate of 22.25%. I don't know. Can you highlight that, Chris? Federal rate there, 22.25. That's the blend of the 50%, or excuse me, the 15% on the first 50,000, 25 on the next 25,000, and 34% on the final 25,000. So what we have here is a benefit, an ability to spread the recognition of that gain over multiple periods and take advantage of, the lower tax brackets, which in a taxable sale you wouldn't have that benefit. Okay, so not only are you paying tax later, you're paying less tax. Okay, so that's an additional benefit to having the tax dollars invested for you. Okay, so we got the one benefit: our tax dollars are being invested and earning interest for us, and the second one is that when we finally do pay taxes, we're paying less taxes. All right, so we run through this analysis and basically equate. Determine what the taxpayer would need to earn in a taxable transaction in order to match what they can make inside the structure. Okay, so when we calculate the returns on all of the receipts from the annuity and compute what we would have at the end of that period, Chris, why don't you go out? No, that's fine. Stay down there. And then just go out to month 200. I apologize for the cumbersome illustration.
I'm sure this is the most ineffective way to get there.
That's all right.
There we go.
Yeah, they go at 155, $1,855,000 of cash there, and all the taxes have been paid, and it's all pulled out of the structure. Okay, so and actually it's month 201. It's $1,869,000, and in order to have that much cash left and all the taxes paid at that point in a taxable transaction, and I'll go right up to the top, Chris. The taxpayer would have to take his after-tax proceeds and earned 13.16%. And as you can see, I mean, obviously earning 13.16% is pretty difficult to do over the course of 16 years. So, day after day, week after week, month after month. So you can see the power of the deferral here in using a structured sale with the C Corp. I'm sure there are questions or any comments. I'd be happy to answer them. But there's a lot of benefit here. Your ability to use your tax dollars to earn money for you. Your ability to spread your receipts and the amount of your taxes over time, and take advantage of lower C Corp rates. And we haven't gotten into. There's another issue. I mean, obviously, you're familiar with personal holding companies and things like that. Passive, personal holding company income, as long as it's distributed in the year it's received, that's not a problem, and that's what's assumed here. And one last thing I'll say is that if you or your client is adverse to annuities, it's possible that we can come up with other products that can produce a little better return. We've used a relatively safe investment for this example at 5.47%. And then the final point that I'll make is that not only is it difficult to find a return of 13.16 on after-tax dollars, I guarantee you none of your clients are going to find a 13.16 rate of return on something with the safety and security of an annuity. So this is a way to get a higher return for a given level of risk. And if any of your clients are nearing retirement, this is a, obviously most of the people that are selling businesses are, not most, but a good chunk of them are in this boat. It's a great return for the given level of risk. With that said, I think I've said enough for a while, so I'll turn it back over to Chris here.
Great, thanks, Joe. Very impressive. Obviously, folks, there's a lot of moving parts in this transaction, and what typically happens is we are engaged with Joe is engaged with the client's CPA or tax advisors, making sure all of these numbers are to the penny and correct. And as you can see here, it really breaks it down simply for the client to exactly what they're getting. It's a great tax planning tool, at least for this part of a client's portfolio. So for the CPA folks and the tax advisors on the phone here, working with you, we will already have done this. So it's a nice tax planning tool that's for the clients. This part of their portfolio is already done. But great product, and Joe, you nailed it right on the head with that 13.16 in any market. And especially with that security is extremely hard to beat. So thank you. And we do have a question here. And let's see. How much do we charge for this? That's a great question. Right now, at this point, we are not charging for this consult. So you can give us a call. We'll walk through this. We obviously require some information from the client and from you as the advisor to make sure we have the numbers in place. And as part of my follow-up, I will send you our questionnaire so you can see exactly what we ask. But we'll run these numbers, and we are only paid then, at this point again, from the substitute obligor, whether it's a money manager or from one of the insurance firms that's annuitizing the money. But with that said, the only firms and the only product we offer is it's a no-load situation. So you'll see here the numbers we quote, this 5.47 is the internal rate of return. And this product is actually a product from, this is an Allstate life insurance annuitized product. And so the client will see this to the penny what they're getting every month with no ongoing management fees and no ongoing commissions. So, and then we are paid then from that substitute obligor. So thank you for that question. And moving right along here, looks like we're well on time. Okay, thanks again, Joe and Brian. And here's just a little summary, and a lot of you are aware of this. This is just to keep you posted on some other situations that we can help clients with. And this has been our claim to fame, which we humbly call the 1031 exchange fallback, and really how the First American Exchange and Brook Hollow Financial Partnership began, is working with clients in a failed exchange. And I'm sure a number of you dealing with clients, whether it's just for businesses or if you're real estate attorney or CPA, obviously these are things that come into play where the client can't ID or fails to close within the 180 days. And again, we'll just slide through these fairly quickly. Gabrielle had mentioned earlier, Point C has been a very popular use of the product where the client has a quote-unquote scrap of equity left over where they couldn't fulfill the complete exchange, and they had leftover proceeds that were going to be taxed. So they can use 1031 and 453 via a structured sale in the same transaction. And this can also all happen within the sale of that C corp. So there can be a lot of deferral heat generated with one transaction, especially where there's real estate involved. In a failed reverse exchange, where the client cannot sell the relinquished property in time. And what we've mentioned here, non-exchangeable assets, personal residence has been the most popular, vacation homes. And you can see here, although we are very focused today on the C corp because of that double taxation, any goodwill situation where there's going to be a gain, and outside of a C corp capital gain, of course we can work with that deferral as well. Again, we just focused on the C corp today because of that massive double taxation situation. Here's an interesting one, a busted installment sale. And when we're talking with businesses, we've talked with some folks where obviously this needs to be a cash deal. Money has to be transacted in order to structure those payments. However, let's say you have a seller or a buyer, whichever side you're taking care of, where the seller has to seller finance the buyer has to seller finance their proceeds. They can't come up with it all up front. Well, we can still, let's say the buyer comes to the table with whatever installment sale they have between each other. The seller, we can still work with the seller where if they want to structure that installment note coming in, that can be structured. So a real nice situation, again, to, where appropriate, to help get the deal done for both sides. And again, we need to be involved as early as possible before that closing. But a real nice situation there when it comes up. And here's an interesting one that, again, came from First American within the last month, one of Gabrielle's colleagues up in Minneapolis, where, and again, a real interesting application of the product. There was a husband and wife situation that they owned a commercial property. They had a long-term lease on that property. Well, the company that was leasing that, and they had a 30-year lease on that property, went bankrupt. So within the bankruptcy process, the husband and wife was going to get a lump payout from that situation, obviously discounted, but a nice amount of money. That was going to be taxed at ordinary income. So it's a nice situation that's, I would assume, prevalent in today's market, where they're not getting taxed at capital gains. They are getting taxed at that higher tax bracket, which is really going to affect that fully taxable equivalent number. So again, you folks that are working with that situation, just to keep that in the back of your mind. And again, as Gabriella mentioned earlier, there's folks that are with any real estate, again, transaction, that they're just looking to get out of that situation, not looking to exchange. The structured sale can be used. Privately held firm buyouts, and again, a lump sum payouts, where the best way to look at this is anything other than a publicly traded stock is an asset that we can, and not all inclusive, but can look at as part of a structured sale. Pretty much any asset that's eligible for 453 treatment is something that we can work with. And we've worked with a lot of privately held firms where there's either a buyout or those privately held stocks are coming due to the individual employees or stock owners, and they don't want to pay all that tax. There's no base, so it's taxed from penny one, and it's taxed at ordinary income. So potentially a very high tax bracket. And with that said, well, I'm sorry, and one last note, our parent firm, Bradford Settlements, does, it's the same theory, but working with structured settlements, attorney fees from those settlements, and qualified settlements. So you folks that work on that side of the business, or know of folks that are looking for guidance on this, feel free to give us a call, and that's really been the core of our parent firm's business for a number of years. So with that said, we are on the dot at 50 minutes. I appreciate everyone on the phone here, and we welcome you to give us a call with any questions that we didn't make clear here. We are happy to do this webinar very specifically if you have a group of investors or a group of clients or your own channel partners that we can provide this information for you, and we encourage you to take advantage of this product, which we are very excited about, specifically for using it with the C Corp situation. And there we are, and there's First American Exchange's information as well. Again, I'm going to be sending out in the next 24 hours a follow-up email. So for the tax advisor resources on the phone here, please send us back the survey. And I encourage everyone to send me back the survey, and we'd appreciate the feedback on specifically this C Corp webinar. We'll get you a CPE completion certificate. So with that said, again, thank you, First American Exchange, for sponsoring and your continued work with us, and all the folks on the phone here. We appreciate it, and everyone have a great day. Take care.